Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're putting on our forensic investigator hats to master EM and EC coding, dodge high-risk red flags, and absolutely protect your practice's hard-earned revenue. This is the ultimate capstone of EM coding. We're going to take everything we know about medical decision-making, time guidelines, and documentation, and we're going to view it entirely through the relentless lens of an auditor. Here is our syllabus for today. We'll be walking chronologically through E&M audits and the stakes, MDM versus time guidelines, the MDM scoring masterclass, high-risk compliance red flags, real-world mock audits and case studies, and finally, compliance and corrective action. Let's get right into it. Section 1, EM audits and the stakes. So, government and commercial entities are looking very closely at your data. We're talking about government fraud contractors like UPICs and ZPICs, recovery audit contractors, and commercial payers' special investigation units. But the good news is, we can intercept issues before they become absolute disasters. We do this through two main avenues. Prospective audits act as your pre-bill shield, catching anomalies before a claim ever goes out the door. Retrospective audits, on the other hand, look backward, post-bill, to uncover historical trends and find hidden revenue leakage. The overarching problem we're trying to solve here is crystal clear. Inaccurate coding is a massive double-edged sword. Underbilling silently bleeds your revenue. I mean, you did the work, but you just didn't get paid for it. But overbilling, that actively alerts agencies like the Office of Inspector General and CMS. It invites heavy fines, massive paybacks, and even legal action under the False Claims Act. Section 2, MDM versus time guidelines. To get the coding right, coders generally have to choose between medical decision-making or total time. Now, the golden rule here is to always utilize whichever method allows the highest appropriate medically necessary reimbursement. Total time includes both face-to-face and non-face-to-face time spent by the provider on the exact date of the encounter. However, keep in mind that some categories, like the emergency department, don't use time at all and rely strictly on medical decision-making. Section 3, the MDM scoring masterclass. Now for the heavy lifting. Medical decision-making is defined by three distinct elements. First, the number and complexity of the problems addressed during the encounter. Second, the amount and complexity of data to be reviewed and analyzed, stuff like labs, tests, and external notes. And third, the risk of complications, morbidity, or mortality regarding patient management. To nail down that final MDM level, you have to remember the golden 2 out of 3 rule. Simply put, at least 2 of these 3 crucial elements must meet or exceed a specific level to qualify for that overall MDM score. When we break down the actual AMA CPT guidelines for straightforward to low MDM, it becomes a very literal point system. We have to meticulously count unique tests, external notes, and problem severity. For example, for a low MDM, you might see 2 or more self-limited problems, or maybe 1 stable chronic illness. For the data element, you might need a combination of 2 things, like reviewing a prior external note and ordering a unique lab test. But as we slide over to the moderate and high levels, the stakes rise significantly. A moderate risk might involve prescription drug management or decisions regarding minor surgery with identified risk factors. A high MDM is reserved for truly severe situations. Think 1 or more chronic illnesses with a severe exacerbation, decisions regarding emergency major surgery, or drug therapy that requires intensive monitoring for toxicity. The key takeaway? You absolutely must have the ironclad clinical documentation to back up these high-stakes categories. Section 4, high-risk compliance red flags. So, what exactly triggers an aggressive audit? Well, these vulnerabilities are giant, flashing neon targets. If a provider is constantly billing level 4 or 5 codes for nearly every single patient, audit algorithms will instantly catch that anomaly. Note cloning, which is copy-pasting documentation from previous visits without actually updating the current patient status or heavily relying on templated over-documentation, is a massive vulnerability. Unverified time logs, missing physician sign-offs, billing based purely on a chief complaint rather than actual medical necessity, and improper application of modifier 25 for separately identifiable services when they aren't truly separate, all of these will fail an audit in a heartbeat. The absolute most dangerous outcome of these red flags is upcoding. For instance, coding a 99215 when the provider's note really only supports a 99213. Whether it's a genuine honest mistake or deliberate abuse, upcoding carries serious civil and sometimes even criminal penalties under the False Claims Act. The diagnosis absolutely must support the service level. Medical necessity is and always will be the ultimate driver. Section 5,
mock audits, and case studies.
Let's test this out with a real-world mock audit. Imagine an outpatient problem-oriented visit. The patient presents with hypertension, diabetes, and an acute COPD flare-up. The provider bills a 99215. But when you actually audit the chart, the risk elements are barely documented, and the plan simply says follow up in 1 week. That vague phrase doesn't justify a high risk of complications. When calculating the score across the 3 MDM categories, they really only meet a 99214 because the data reviewed was minimal. Or consider an inpatient observation visit billed strictly on time, but the time logs are entirely missing, or just state something like, had a long discussion. What is the immediate financial verdict for both of these scenarios? Recoupment. The financial impacts of these errors are exact opposites, but equally damaging. Undercoding, like documenting 3 chronic conditions with moderate risk, but only billing a 99213, silently leaves money on the table. It completely drains your practice's bottom line. But overcoding, like our previous example of minimal documentation for a 99215, creates immense compliance risk and forces eventual painful paybacks when the auditors inevitably come knocking on your door.
Section 6. Compliance and corrective action.
To truly shield your practice from these critical errors, you need to implement internal compliance monitoring protocols based on the 7 core elements of the OIG compliance program. This creates a self-correcting feedback loop for your entire practice. It means establishing a compliance manual, assigning a dedicated officer, and performing routine audits to calculate exact error rates. When an error is found, you have to develop corrective action plans, or CAPs, to address the root cause. And if you discover an overpayment, you must strictly follow the 60-day rule to refund the payer. This closed-loop system of physician education and accountability is exactly what keeps a practice safe. Ultimately, our goal is absolute precision, ensuring every single coded encounter reflects the true medical necessity, complexity, and documentation quality. Not a penny more, not a penny less. So ask yourself, are your automated audit tools actively catching these red flags before they become a massive liability, or is your revenue cycle dangerously exposed? Implementing these frameworks ensures you are always on the right side of the audit. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Decode Healthcare with Harshal.